Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nidus Anarchy series. I'm your host, Adam, the CIO and co-founder of Nidus, and today we're going to be talking about disappearing in the modern age. And why? Well, because Ian, the producer of the podcast, who's joined me today, asked me a very interesting question. And I was like, this is something probably a lot of people would want to know about. So here we are. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for this because it's always been an interesting topic to me, and I feel like you would have greater insight into this. So, this is a topic I've always thought about, but I thought about it, I guess, somewhat more recently, about a year ago. I write for several different podcasts. One of them is called Obscurities. It's narrated by Debbie Rochon, who's a horror actress. But I came across this story from an Unsolved Mysteries episode, and I thought it was fascinating. So this was a very different time when you think about it. In the early 90s, this older couple met at a sweat lodge spiritual retreat type of thing. And
Sounds cultish.
fell in love. Shortly after, got married, and they decided to start this fish farming business of raising tilapia.
That's the natural progression of things.
Yeah. The woman's family helped put up a lot of money so that they could get property for this fish farming business, which, as you can imagine, involved like buying these large tanks for fish.
How does that happen? How do you be like, hey, I met this guy at a sweat lodge. I need a ton of money. We're going to raise tilapia.
I guess it was just an idea he
I
thought
want to
of.
see the business plan.
He was apparently always very into the ocean, so
Okay.
I guess it came about. And you're also probably wondering, how does this get into going missing? So I'll quickly shift into that. So what happened was he set out to go on this business trip, I guess involving something with these giant tanks, and he was on a large bus with these tanks to go probably across to some other state, meet with some woman to do some type of maintenance. I don't remember exactly
Underground
what.
fish trading.
Yeah. And he went to a hotel in a rented vehicle and left the large vehicle parked there with these giant tanks. The wife did not hear from him for several days, and he was reported missing. She goes back to that hotel. The large vehicle with the tanks is there. His rented vehicle is no longer there. This goes on for, I believe, about a year or two, and she contacts Unsolved Mysteries. This was once again back in the early days of the 90s, Robert Stack hosting, and the episode airs. And he calls his wife after the show airs, and he basically has this story of, listen, like, that is me. I recognized in the video that you have with the photos and everything.
How many people have tilapia tubs in their bag? Like,
Well,
too many people.
The thing that he said, though, is he goes, I don't remember any of this happening. I don't remember anything about us being married. I have amnesia. Like, I don't remember the incident that happened. She believed at the time that he was mugged or something at the hotel. He's like, maybe that's what happened. I don't know. But he was living under a different alias in a different state for several years. And they met up again. And, she was hoping that they would rekindle their love and everything. And he basically said, I'm sorry, you're pretty much a stranger to me. I don't remember you. So they had experts weigh in, and they said, yeah, this is not how...
smells fishy.
Yeah, they were basically like, this is not how amnesia works.
Yeah.
And this is probably, and I think all of us would probably agree, him trying to run away from a ton of debt that her family lent for them to start this business. But he successfully, either way, had that show have not aired, he successfully went missing for a long period of time, living under a different alias. But I was thinking to myself, the early 90s, totally different world. Yeah. Could that happen today? And that leads us into the topic.
Okay. So, yeah, it's going to be drastically harder to go missing nowadays like that than it would be back in the 90s for sure. But one thing that I want to clarify, when that show aired, did you say he then called her and said, hey, that's me, or he called the show? What happened?
I believe he called her. He got in touch with her, and I'm guessing, I think the story was bullshit, quite honestly, that he gave. So I was thinking probably in the back of his mind, he was like, hey, the feds might be on to me. They're using police resources to find a missing person, which they were using, and apparently wasted a ton of money trying to find this guy. Yeah. So he probably said, to avoid any conflict, let me speak with her, let me come up with this story so that I do not get in trouble for the amount of debt that I put her family in to start this business.
Okay. So that part I found interesting. Just we'll get to the whole missing person, how do you disappear thing. But the reason I just want to talk on that point is what happened that particular moment. That is almost how every major criminal gets busted. Is they talk. So if you don't want to get in trouble for something, don't tell anybody about it. And that he broke the cardinal rule, right? Like he thought he was going to get found out, or he expect maybe the feds were going to come find him, but they hadn't yet. Like he obviously had gotten away. It's been a year. They didn't know where he was, and then he preemptively called to say, "Oh, you know what? Let me nip this in the bud, or let me spin my story on it, or something."
I would say that, and you and I remember the early 90s. I mean, you more so than me.
Yeah.
You're several years older than me. But in the early 90s, you would remember, it's not like today where everybody's in their own little social media bubble.
Yeah.
If a new episode of Unsolved Mysteries aired at the height of that show, you probably had a giant percentage of the population watching from all over the country, and this guy's face plastered on your TV screen. So he was probably like, someone is going to call and say, I've seen this man.
Yeah, so for people that didn't watch TV in the 90s because you weren't around, that would be the equivalent of like Mr. Beast putting out a new video and being like, hey, has anyone seen this guy? And it's your face. Like, yeah, everyone's going to be like, hey, I just saw that guy.
Honestly, probably even more so, I would say, because everybody only had however many channels.
Unsolved Mysteries was awesome, but I don't think it was like, it wasn't like Friends or anything either. It was huge, but it wasn't that big.
We'd have to look. I mean, I love that show. Yeah.
Everyone knows Unsolved Mysteries. Everyone. Like, it's an amazing show. Everyone watched it because you know it is like it's the evolution of true crime, right? Like that's what all like my wife's into true crime. Seems like all the girls are into true crime podcasts and things now. So that's a whole nother topic. I don't want to get segued, but it's like that drives me nuts because they listen, they watch all these documentaries on Netflix. Oh, Jeffrey Dahmer and this and that. So it's like they now think they're going to get kidnapped and be part of like a serial killer syndicate or something. And it's like, what? It's like you live in Iowa. Like nothing's going to happen to you. What are you talking about? No one's kidnapping you. It's like, come on.
But yeah, I would think, I remember the part of the stories that this guy was living in Florida. I think his wife was somewhere in maybe the Midwest or Northeast or something like that. And unless you have some plan to leave the country, if you see in primetime TV, once again, your face plastered, someone is going to call probably. So I'm sure he was thinking it's better that I call than someone else call.
Sure. And I was actually just watching a podcast with Lex Friedman. I forget the guy's name, so we'll find it and post it. But he was interviewing a con man who was doing mortgage fraud on people. And he found out he was getting busted, and the DEA, or I forget who was coming after him, not DEA, but like FBI and some other people, like big time resources were coming after, not just the local cops. So he fled with him and his girlfriend. He even got plastic surgery to change his face, and he was just constantly on the road running because then something would notice him, or the problem was he kept committing crimes everywhere he would go, and then he would just attract law enforcement again. Then he'd have to spin it off in the next place. And
I don't think I heard the podcast, but is this possibly like the Catch Me If You Can guy?
No, it's not. That's a great story too, though. His story is really cool. So this guy, and this was more recent. This was like in I think the early 2000s is when he went on the run.
Okay.
So still a little bit easier than today. But yeah, like if you're on the run and your face is plastered as Secret Service Most Wanted, you get pulled over for a speeding ticket. They're gonna, it's possible you get busted. But
that's a whole other subject. But that's how Tim McVeigh got busted.
Really?
Oh yeah, he had just a minor license plate infraction, like visibility, and they saw his face. They're like, "This is the guy."
Yeah. And that's what's crazy because, like, as like you and me, is when we get pulled over and like, oh well, you're the light on your license plate. I couldn't really read it all, and you're sitting there like, this is such bullshit, man. Like, come on. It's like I'm not doing anything wrong. You're just pulling me over to see what you can find on me. But to your point, they definitely find a lot of criminals because it's of something stupid. Like they didn't put their blinker on and they pulled over and then found a ton of guns in the back seat or something. Yeah. So I understand it. It's annoying, but it's one of those things I'm not going to die for, you know what I mean? But so one of the big things was, so this guy trying to disappear, he had it down like to a science. He wasn't just creating fake IDs and whatever. He was getting real IDs. He was going out and paying bums. Like he was doing fake interviews with people to find out all their information. Give me your first name, last name, social security number, whatever. Have you had any criminal history? Because he didn't want people getting pinched that would then link back to his real life that he's creating around that identity that he stole. So he was going and assuming these people's identities, and he had tons of them. And then he'd go to the DMVs in other states, like he'd go to like Alabama or Mississippi or Tennessee, Georgia, whatever. He'd drive over and then present all the documentation. Hey, I got the birth certificate. He'd slowly collect all the information one at a time, legitimately, because he just found the loopholes on how to do all this stuff. And he'd obviously forge documents and shit, so they're not like legitimate. But he didn't like make fake IDs. He didn't go into the DMV and have someone on the inside. He presented a real birth certificate that he got that was, that he just happened, he got, and through nefarious means. So he was getting real driver's licenses with his face, with the other person's name and a real SSN back on it. So when he would get pulled over, it wasn't a worry because this person is clean. And when they get pulled over, it was not a big deal. So if you want to disappear today, you're going to have to go to that level.
Yeah.
Like, you're not just going to be able to be like, oh, I'm just going to disappear again. It's like, okay, cool. Well, how are you going to do anything? Because how many times do you show your ID in a month, let's say? Well, all those things you can no longer do because you don't have an ID. So what are you going to do? You have to adopt a new identity. So if you want to disappear, the first thing you're going to have to do is get a new identity. And to do that, there's a bunch of different ways, but a lot of those obviously have very strict checks and balances in place to prevent things like this.
Sure.
But it obviously still happens, and a big reason is because a lot of this stuff is just like government jobs, like DMV and stuff. Like, they don't want to be there, they don't really care. Should you check the forms?
It's funny, I'm thinking back to, this would be kind of inside, but when you think about how much checking they do, I had to do something for you at the DMV, and they said your birth date did not match your birth certificate.
Yeah.
And, it was a whole ordeal, and you wouldn't have gotten away with anything because they were so strict on everything. Yeah, even though it was a mess up on their part.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they had my birth date wrong in their system.
Yeah.
So therefore, they thought I was committing some fraud thing. Actually, they thought Ian was committing some fraud thing. But yeah, so it's, the checks are definitely there. But at the same time, if you're smart enough and you learn the system and you slowly find the right person to socially engineer along the way, like, you've gone to the DMV a lot, right? When you go,
for you.
right? But when you've developed a relationship with a certain person here, and you know, like, okay, if I go to that guy, he's going to remember me, he's going to know my history, and this is going to go a lot easier and quicker. He's not really going to look at all this stuff. So people that are doing that are forging these identities, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to build relationships within certain places. So when they go there, they already have that kind of like, I left it at home. Oh,
And so I was just going to say,
okay.
the people whose identities this guy took,
Yeah.
they would also have to look a lot like him, correct?
No, not at all. Because he's starting over. So in the identity management world, we call, when an identity is provisioned, we create an account somewhere, they have what are called birthright roles, which means as soon as that person is created in the system, there's certain roles that they get right out of the gate because of their role within the company. And so those are called birthright roles. So similarly, if you want to get an identity, hypothetically, I guess, maybe I should probably throw that word around a lot more right now, you do it from the birthright documentation. So you don't just walk in and be like, oh, hey, look, this is me, and they're not going to find the face of that guy somewhere else because you have the birth certificate, you have all the, I don't want to give all the pieces of information away, but you have all the documents needed that are legit. And none of them have a face on them because there's no picture on your birth certificate, right? There's no picture on your social security card.
So, but they have to be the same age range. There's certain things that would have to be, yeah.
Right. So
same sex, obviously.
You want it to be, nowadays, who the fuck knows? But yeah, but you want it to be around the same age, similar build, nothing terribly crazy. You don't want some like 400-pound black guy and you look like a 7-foot tall, skinny white guy. That's not going to work out well.
It'd be hard for you to find someone.
But you know what, though? This is what's crazy. And this just happened. I was at the bank yesterday. I don't know if I should put the bank's name on blast because they are a client.
Don't.
But don't do it. So I walked in and I was just doing a deposit and then I was going to take out some cash. And I walked in and I was like, okay, cool. I need to deposit this check. It was a certified check from another bank. He's like, no problem. I signed it on the back. He's like, hey, by the way, we're not signing this on the back anymore. Now you just write the company name to endorse it. Don't use your signature. And I was like, okay. What's the point then? Anybody can write the name of the company that matches on the back. So either it's no longer needed, which should be the proper answer, or there has to be something that's identifiable, which is the whole point of a signature, because you're supposed to match, like in a bank, when you sign something, your signature card should come up to compare.
Oh yeah, there's been so many times over the years that, quite honestly, at a bank, especially if it's a new bank I'm a part of, where I just scribble my signature, and they go, oh, this doesn't match.
So in Puerto Rico at Banco Popular, they've been super strict about signatures matching.
Yeah.
So much to where they questioned me signing my signature because mine was just like I do a quick
Yeah,
little thing
that's what I
versus when I
mean.
signed the bank card, apparently I signed like my full name. And they're like, these signatures don't match, we can't do this. And I had to go through a huge thing to redo my signature card to make it my scribble one, essentially. And but I think that goes to tell you there's probably a lot more fraud, check fraud going on in Puerto Rico than there is in Manhattan. So it's just not as big of a risk where they don't really care as much. But so anyway, so this bank up here, I was like, okay, so but what you're saying is anyone can really sign this for me. It doesn't really matter. Like, well, it needs to be you. I'm like, okay, we're just gonna end this conversation. And then I was like, so far you've not asked me for identification of any kind. And he's like, oh, well, right now you're just depositing something. I'm like, okay, cool, but I need to take out cash. He's like, yeah, so I need you to put your card in. So I put my card in and put in the PIN. He's like, okay. And he's like, how much do you want? So I told him how much cash I want. He's like, okay. And I'm like, so you still don't need my ID? And then he's like, no, only when you're requesting like thousands of dollars or it's a lot of money. Then, then we have to ask for that second form of identification to make sure. And I'm sitting there like, and I mean, I'm literally trolling this guy, this bank teller. And he's still not like, wouldn't you be like, this is weird conversation. Maybe I should ask you for your ID. Nope. He's still just like, he's like, no, unless it's like a lot, then we have to get bank approval and all this stuff where we don't need the second form of identification. I'm like, okay, so how do you know I'm this person? Like, what if I just happened to know this dude's PIN and I stole his card? I lifted it at the bar last night. And he's like, that was it. That was the response.
And that goes back to something you've talked about on the podcast before, actually, when we spoke about the Las Vegas hack, how you were saying they went through the people who were like the lower level, not being paid the most. Yep. That's the same as the bank teller. They're not the one who set company policy, and maybe that's not the company policy, but they don't really care because this is like an entry-level job for them.
Yeah,
so yeah.
They don't care. And and I understand the thought process behind it too, because if you think, well, you could just do the exact same thing at the ATM. And we don't ask you to hold up your driver's license when you go to the ATM. You just have the card and the PIN, and it's good enough.
They do have better cameras now, though, right?
Wear a mask in the bank. That's the one thing that COVID messed up that not many people talk about is now it's okay to wear a mask everywhere.
That's true.
Before, you absolutely cannot wear a mask in a bank.
Yeah.
You wear a mask in a bank, they'll tell you to take it off or get out. Now, you can't say anything. So you can easily walk into a bank with a mask on right now.
Sure.
Have your hood up, have a mask on, sunglasses, walk out to an ATM, and it's normal.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, basically the long point is, you can find all the little loopholes in each various system. So with the Social Security system, with the birth certificate system, because that's really just a hospital. So you can go individual hospitals and find out where the weaknesses are. And then through the driver's license system, through the DMV, through getting passports. I mean, you can eventually, if you get the base couple documents, there's 3 documents where if you get them legit, you can get everything else.
Yeah.
So, and there are ways to get those if there's a real person involved that you're going to steal their identity from. And so, like, a lot of times what people do is bums are one, homeless people or housing in challenge, I don't know what the hell we call them nowadays. And then the other one is through people that have died where there wasn't a death certificate reported. So if a person, more specifically a baby, like a childbirth, like a baby is born, but then they die like a week or a day, 2 later, whatever. So when they're born, they're issued a birth certificate immediately. Like, hey, you're born, here you are. And you got to think about it like you're trying to get a birth certificate of someone relatively to your age. So for me, the likelihood of a baby dying in 1980 and getting a birth certificate and then not being registered as a death is very likely. I'm not very likely, like I could absolutely find someone that can do that. Because there were no computer systems back then. Everything wasn't logged like it is now. So like nowadays, like my kids will have a much harder chance at falsifying identities through that, like the no death certificate loop. But yeah, so that's another way that you could try to score one in theory. But one of the things I was mentioning is we kind of joked around. It's like, oh, I'm not like a big black dude, so therefore, it's not going to match. But at the same time, when I was at that bank teller, then I said, I need to take out a large chunk of cash. He was like, okay, well, now I need your ID. And I was like, okay, we're playing the game. So I gave him my ID. And he held it up as like a joke. He's like, oh, I need to match this you. And I'm like, what's hilarious is I've done this multiple times. That teller, bartenders, everyone, they ask me for an ID. And everyone looks at the face, right? If you see me, one, the face can be masked with beards or masks and whatever. So kind of look like that person to match. But you know me. If you have my driver's license, what is the one thing on my driver's license that will guarantee to be me and nobody else?
As you mentioned earlier, height.
Yeah, I'm 7 feet tall. So if you look at my driver's license and it says 5'2", that should be the thing that you're looking at. But we're training everyone to do everything wrong. Like you said, bottom rung. They're just told, look at the ID, doesn't match, whatever. And they can't really think for themselves. So that's where you can play into those loopholes. So even though I could falsify an identity if someone else is born around my age, whatever, they could be 5'5", and honestly, it ain't going to matter because they're not going to look at the height part. They're just going to the face looks probably the same. Yeah, like you do want to have, you would have to mirror someone that looks a lot like you, but it's not as important as you may think.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was getting at. It's a long...
You know, there's also a crazy debate I remember with the DMV is the religious freedom debate of people who wanted to wear the like full burqa in their license photo.
100%. Dude, I was at, it was back in college, I was at the post office. I was mailing some stuff out from eBay, and I swear to God, this happened. Because I grew up in Detroit, one of the and outside Detroit is Dearborn, which is one of the largest Arabic populations in the world outside of the Middle East. So I grew up with people in full burqas around me as a kid. Like it was almost like a normal thing, right? Yeah. So I'm at the post office, and there's this lady, full burqa, and she even has like the tinted windows over top. Not just, no, you can't even see the eyes.
Wow.
She goes to pay for something. She's mailing something, and she goes, hands him the credit card. The guy's like, I need your ID. And she's like, hands it to him. And he does this. She's like, you can see like the brain like rebooting and failing. Like, I don't understand what to do in this situation because like the ID, and you know what was on the ID? A picture of her in the burqa.
Yeah, and that's why.
So I'm like, what's the point of the ID?
Yeah, and that was the whole thing. I think, I don't know if it was New York State or nationwide that there was, whole talk. This is a security risk. You have to make them take it off.
Especially after 9/11.
But then like, the argument was the religious freedom argument.
Right.
And then who wins in that?
Yeah. I think it's, okay, you don't have to have a driver's license. You're not guaranteed, you don't have an inalienable right to have a driver's license. So therefore, if you want one, you have to abide by the rules that we have.
But you need to have a legal form of ID in this country. If the police pull you over, they're going to ask for your ID. You can't just say, I don't have one. Then they can put you in jail, I think.
No, until they verify who you are. But I think, so they can absolutely detain you if you don't have ID. If they say, give me ID, and you don't, they can detain you if they have probable cause for whatever reason. And, they'll just make up whatever they want if they want to. And then, once they have you, then you will have to go through a much longer process to prove who you are and that you're a legit citizen or that you weren't the guy that did the thing or whatever.
I feel like you would know better than me, though, like legally, in the United States or state by state, is there a law that you have to have an ID?
I'm not a lawyer, and so I don't know the laws, but I would be willing to bet that there is no law that says that you have to have an identification card on you. I know there's laws that say you have to present it if a cop, tells you to give it to him.
But I guess you could present your birth certificate, right?
Not even. You could just not give anything. There's I really don't think there's a law, and we can Google this if we want, but I really don't think there's a law that says that you have to have identification on you all the time. It's really just a convenience. Like if you don't want to get arrested and go through the long process, you have to have identification. So kind of think of it this way. When I came back from Europe with my daughter in December, we got through customs at JFK. I've been detained at JFK before, coming back from out of the country. And we're going through, and we get up to the thing, my daughter's all like, oh, what is this? She's never moved out of the country, so those customs things all new to her. We get there, the guy's like, cool, hands the passports, and he's like trying to tilt the camera to get it to come up to get to me. And I was like, excuse me. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I don't want my picture taken. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't want me or my daughter's picture to be in your system. We do not consent to having our photo taken. Because you can opt out of that. They don't tell you that, but you absolutely can tell them, I don't want my picture taken. I don't want my biometrics taken. No, you can't have my fingerprints. As a U.S. citizen, you can tell them that. If you're a foreign citizen, I don't think you have the option. I think you have to. Otherwise, they'll just kick you out.
Okay.
So you can tell them no. Just like at TSA, when you walk through and you're like, you got to go through the scanner where they see you naked. You can tell them no. Everyone knows.
They pat you down.
And then they pat you down, right? So you got, and
you
they
have to
make
do one or the other.
And they make a big deal of it. Right? Like, we got an opt out. We got an opt out over here. We got an opt out. This guy opted out. This guy, can you believe it? This guy. Hey, Bob, this guy opting out. You got anyone? No, nothing. Yeah, you're gonna be here an hour. You know, like
Yeah.
they purposely try to shame you in front of everybody, and I'm just like, whatever. I don't give a shit. I've never walked through that micromillimeter scanner one time, never.
Yeah.
And I'll always opt out of it. So same thing. So we're going through customs. They're like, hey, you know, I don't want to do this stuff. They're like, okay. And he's like, first he was like, what do you mean? Like trying to challenge me. And I was like, we don't consent. I'm like, you know, we're not into it. We don't want our stuff stored. And he's like, okay, you gotta come with me. I'm like, cool. Grabbed their passports, shut the whole thing down. You could hear everyone in line going, oh, because there goes one whole line of funneling people closed. And he takes us down the hall to like this back room, and we walk in, just have a seat, and you're just sitting there with all these chairs and all these other people just kind of waiting for whatever. And I think a lot of them are actually getting busted because like there was some smells back there that are very illegal. But so then we had talked to this lady, and she's like, okay, so you know what's going on? And I was like, oh, we opted out of the photo, so we're here. And she's like, okay. So she just asked me some basic questions. Who are you? What were you doing? Your typical going through border stuff. Ran the passport, just make sure everything was legit. And she's like, okay, here you go, bye. So you can always get out of stuff if you're doing everything the right way and legally. They're just going to make it harder for you. So that's why I really don't think you have to have an ID, but they can absolutely detain you, bring you down to the office, force you to say, okay, well, prove you are who you are, and then you got to go and I got to find my birth certificate, or I got to call this person, or whatever you got to do, which will be a pain in the ass. Versus, there you go.
Sure.
Right. So I think having your ID on you is more of a convenience factor.
Yeah, that's what people are going to go with.
Right. Because I've lived a long time where I've lived in Puerto Rico for since 2010 until now. I think about half of my time has probably been in Puerto Rico. Maybe not half, but a lot of it has been in Puerto Rico. And so therefore, when I'd be traveling in the States, I'd have my Puerto Rican driver's license. And it was a huge benefit to me because the U.S. police systems did not talk to the Puerto Rican police systems. So therefore, when they tried to run my license, nothing would come up. They couldn't check anything about it, but it's a completely valid license. I had to explain to them what Puerto Rico was and how it's part of the United States almost every single time, but they couldn't do anything. So it's like, you can write me a ticket, you can do whatever you want, it doesn't matter, I don't live here. And so pretty much every time they're just like, they'd have to wait. I'd be waiting. They'd be in the car. They'd be talking to someone forever to figure out if this is a valid license. I knew where in the book, like they have a book that all the cops, TSA agents all have with every driver's license from every state and like Guam and all the other places. So I knew the page and where to find it because I'd see that book so many times. But then going through trying to validate my license, I'd be like, no, it's start from the back, go like 5 pages in. There it is. And they're like, oh yeah, okay. And then they check it out and they're like, okay, you're good to go. But that was only maybe 10 years ago was probably the last time I saw the book. And there were definitely computer systems where you should be able to type Puerto Rico and pop it up.
Yeah.
And their systems should absolutely be able to talk to Puerto Rican systems, but they don't. Even bank systems don't talk to each other. Like Banco Popular here in the U.S., completely separate from Banco Popular in Puerto Rico. The bank systems don't even talk to each other. So things like that, when you find little weird loopholes about how to get around stuff, it's like, oh, have a Puerto Rican driver's license. Just go down to Puerto Rico. You can just go to Puerto Rico and pretty much get one. It's not really rocket science to get a driver's license in Puerto Rico, or just an ID card.
Sure.
So go down there, get one of those, be up in the States, and now you have a legit driver's license. It's a legit ID. They're going to run it a million times because they don't understand what Puerto Rico is. But when they do and find out, yes, you're a U.S. citizen, yes, it's a valid license, and then, okay, you're off to go. But I think the systems actually probably talk to each other today, now that I think about it. Or not that I think about it, but I think like I've heard that they can start talking. I don't have my Puerto Rican license anymore. I got rid of it a couple years ago. But it definitely helped a long time because I didn't, to your question about disappearing.
Sure.
So when I was in Manhattan, I got selected for grand jury duty. Grand jury duty means you have to give 2 weeks of your time to serve on a jury. On a jury. It's not like, oh, what do you believe in this? No, we don't want them. That whole thing, like you see in the movies, that's not a thing. Grand jury duty means you're selected. You have to give 2 weeks. I just started my own company. I had no money. I was massively in debt, and I just got my first client. And they're like, you got selected for grand jury duty. I'm like, I can't just tell the client I'm gone for 2 weeks for jury duty, and you're going to pay me a whole whopping $3 an hour or whatever that I'm there. And so I kept deferring it. And then they said, hey, next time you don't show up, we're sending the cops to bring you here.
Wow.
I had a judge. I was sitting in her office, and she's like, hey, look, this is the last time I'm letting you defer. Next time you get the summons, you have to show up. And if you don't show up, we're sending the cops to your house to come pick you up.
Crazy.
And then, of course, I got the letter in the mail a couple weeks later with the red stamp on it. And the red stamp is the one where it's your last, like, you don't have an option anymore. It's now mandatory. You have to come. And at that point in time, though, I had already bought my house in Puerto Rico. I already bought a car in Puerto Rico. I already moved my stuff down to Puerto Rico. And now I'm only visiting Manhattan to work. I'm living in Puerto Rico, and I have my Puerto Rican driver's license. So I went back to court, and I was like, hey, I'm not a resident of New York anymore. I can't serve on the grand jury duty. That lady was very upset with me. She made very certain that if I ever moved back into Manhattan, that I would definitely be on the top of the list to be selected for jury duty.
And have you, since moving back?
Nope. No, I don't live in Manhattan. I don't live in Nassau
You live in
County.
New York, okay.
Not Nassau County.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. So there are ways to get around things. Now, to completely disappear off the grid nowadays is very difficult because your face is because of facial recognition and how prevalent it is and how easy it is for anyone to use it and where we're going to be going, like forget now, just think 3-5 years from now. When you wanted to say, I want to disappear, you're not saying, I want to disappear today. What you're saying is, I want to disappear for the rest of my life.
Well, then back to your statement about how normalized masks are. You can just go around wearing a mask and a beanie, sunglasses, and you're legally allowed to do that. So.
You absolutely could. But 5 years from now, is that going to be considered okay?
I would think so. If you're like, there will still be people getting COVID, and you can say I'm very paranoid about COVID.
Yeah, and you could play, and you're kind of finding the point, which is you can absolutely do things to work the systems to stay invisible, but your quality of life is going to drastically reduce. How are you going to hang out, meet people, network, create business, get money, get a job?
Plastic surgery, massive plastic surgery.
That's a ton of money.
Yeah.
And most people aren't going to go through it.
If you're a rich person though who wants to go missing.
If you are a rich person that wants to go missing and you have because more than just money, you also have the network, right?
Yeah.
Then in that case, you just leave the country.
Do you think there's people doing this though right now? Do you
100%.
think? Yeah. So there's people who are accomplishing it then.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is, I would think, would be to disappear long enough to where no one cares anymore. And at that point, then you can kind of start living your life. The problem is with facial recognition now and how Big Brother everything is getting, and it's going to be even later. Like it's going to be commonplace and there's websites right now that absolutely do this. Because I mean, I wrote this as a weekend hackathon thing, like 5 years ago to prove out that it was possible. Is that you can? My system was called Carnivore. You can just take a picture of someone, upload it to the system, and then it will return back all their Instagram photos of that person's face in those photos.
Yeah.
It'll show you all the date and time, where they were, the locations, who they're around, who their friends are, because those other faces show up, alongside. So that the government, police forces, federal, like FBI, DEA, whatever, they all have access to systems like that, right? So they have your face, and then they're just going to be like, hey, has this person showed up in anything online ever? And you're like, well, I'm never going to post online again. I'm not going to use a cell phone ever again. Okay.
But as I said, like the big one, just in a short period of time, massive plastic surgery.
Yeah.
Change your nose, change your lips, which you could do now, as we all know.
Yes, but you can't change your irises. You can wear contacts, so you're going to have to worry about that. Your ears also act as a fingerprint. You can get away with that. Your fingerprints can be left. So there was actually some movie I was watching where they're like, oh, we figured out who this secret assassin is. Zoom in on that wine glass way over there, and there's a partial fingerprint. Zoom in, get the print off of there from the video camera, from this crappy video footage at night. It's like, this is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane now.
You're in the world of body modification, though. I mean, you've seen these people online who are literally like, I want to look like an alien. And they accomplish it.
Yes, they do.
They don't look anything like the child that they were.
No, and most of them wind up committing suicide.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I had a lot of time in that industry. And in the beginning, it was like, a lot of the times it was cool. And it was never like, hey, they don't just wake up one day and be like, hey, I want to be a tiger. It's just they gradually do things like, oh, I got tattoos of tiger stripes. Oh, that's cool. And then they see the attention and they add into it. Next thing you know, they've completely transitioned to alien guy, demon guy, skull guy, tiger guy, cat girl, puzzle guy. I mean, if you know who these people are, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And they're probably the most famous ones. And the thing is, though, it's like their quality of life has just drastically decreased afterwards. And a lot of times, not all of them, but a couple of the ones I've mentioned, they've killed themselves because they just can't live with it anymore. So, and that's the other thing too, is you have to fully commit. If you're going to disappear, fully commit. You have to break off all ties. You can't call your parents again. You can't call your kids again. Because as soon as you do, if you're wanted, like really wanted, they're going to have taps. They're going to be, and you got to think of it this way, right? Like you have to be 100% successful in everything you do to stay hidden forever. the feds, if they're following you or whoever's searching for you, they hire private detective or just people, whatever, they only have to find one time that you mess up.
Yeah.
So you're constantly going to be living that way. You're going to be living in a highly stressed environment. That's why realistically, like if you want to disappear, you got to get out of the country.
Yeah. And by the way, everything you're saying is why I've always found the witness protection program so fascinating. Because if you start to research a lot of, it's in the conspiracy realm, but a lot of like terrorist attacks, lone wolf attacks, stuff that have happened in this country, there are people who are attached to those who played a part in these acts, but didn't go to jail, and they gave up information and they went into witness protection.
Yep.
And it always is in the back of my mind that I always think of the example, like, because most of these people they're in middle America, they're not in areas that are like highly publicized.
Right.
So it's like you walk into a Starbucks in rural Kansas, you never know, like the guy behind the counter there
Thick Italian
could
accent.
be, never know who it is, or it could be someone who's related to like the 9/11 terrorist attack, something crazy like that. There are people like that.
Yeah.
And they're working a normal job in witness protection. And from what I know about the witness protection program is basically the government is like, you could leave this program at any time, but when you leave, you will no longer have the protection of the government.
Yeah.
So
I don't know
most
too
of them
enough
are,
about it, but yeah, I would imagine like that's.
we don't know much about it because it really is so secret. And not we all, but I think it's very likely you or I or someone we know have encountered someone who's in a witness protection program and we never would know.
Oh, I
So they
know
give
I
them
have.
a whole. So there you go. I mean, they give them a whole new life story. They have no more contact with their spouse, no more contact with their family, friends. That identity is gone because they could be killed for one reason or another.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem is, I don't think the way that the current WITSEC program works or how the whole like disappearing thing is going to last long, like without major plastic surgery. When I say major, I mean major reconstructive surgery, not just your face. You're going to have to wear permanent contact lenses. You're going to have to mess up with your ears. You're going to have to change your gait of how you walk.
Yeah.
You're going to, if you have any tattoos, you have to scrub all those off. And there's going to be a lot of other things that you have to do because you have a lot of identifying features. Your fingerprints, you have to acid burn those off your fingers or not touch anything ever again. Good luck with that one. So you can't just do these one things. You have to commit to all of it if you want to continue to live where they're hunting you down. But the biggest thing is, and this isn't even like, oh, I want to disappear and that's why it concerns me. It's more just, I'm a big privacy advocate. I don't want myself to be online when I don't want to be online. I don't want my kids' pictures and stuff to be online unless I choose it to be, which is pretty much never.
Which, by the way, when they grow up, inevitably, their picture's going to be out there just like everybody else.
Right. Well, and it's not even necessarily because I chose to or they chose to, right? It could be my kids playing at the park and there's other parents taking pictures of their kids and posting them online and my kid's in the background playing with that kid, whatever, and now my kid's picture's online. And I didn't want that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And no one's asking that question of like, well, what's my rights and my privacy rights and my kids and my family's privacy rights when like I'm at a bar and I'm hanging out having a good time and then someone's taking pictures of me and posting it online. It's like, I don't want my clients to know that I'm at this crazy, seedy, dark bar or something, you know what I mean? Because like that could affect my job. Like it won't because I'm very open about what I do. I don't really care.
Yeah. But I do get, and yeah, that always crosses the boundary of like what are, your private life and your public life. Because this is a weird example, but you remember that guy who was in the current Biden administration who was considered himself non-binary? He was that bald guy who wore a dress.
Guy? Oh, yes.
No,
the one that stole everyone's luggage?
Stealing everyone's luggage. So I was working actually on a radio, or it was a podcast. I was basically contracted to do a week when one of their guys was not there. This guy, I could say it's public knowledge, Mike Pesca, who's like, I guess, a more left, he would say moderate, but I think a little bit more left-leaning radio host. But anyway, he had Dan Savage on, which I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's a very big gay rights advocate. That's his thing. And he was talking about the guy, Sam Brinton, the name just came to my mind. And he was openly saying this on the podcast. He's like, yeah, I know of Sam Brinton. And then he goes, I've even been at sex parties with Sam Brinton. And he started talking about, and what he said, whether you like his views or not, is true to me. He's like, yeah, there's going to be people in the kink space or that type of thing who want to have a job in public office, which is like the polar opposite of that. And I'm sure we've always had that. I mean,
which
but
president was it that was caught with women's underwear? What was that, Truman or one of those things?
I don't remember that one. I know, but
was
I know
the head of the CIA or
I
something.
mean, we know Bill Clinton, but the stuff that he was
the
up
blue
to.
dress.
Yeah, but I'm just like, or the stuff with JFK and Marilyn Monroe. But all of that used
People are
to
freaks
be
everywhere, no matter what you do.
But you used to be able to be like, that's my private life.
Right.
I'm going to keep that separate from my public life. And yeah, now you're really actually going to have a lot of trouble, I think, finding people who want to be in Congress or stuff like that. Because from like birth until then, you're going to have to live this squeaky clean life for the most part.
Yeah.
Unless the public perception changes. Like, you will not be able to be a guy on your 21st birthday who goes, let's go to a strip club.
Vegas.
And then, and then, 20 years later, you're like, you know what? I want to be a congressman.
Yeah.
It's going to come back to haunt you, even though, I mean, in my opinion, you really do anything wrong. But to
that's
public
not how
perception, you did something wrong.
And I like to bring it down because that's like, 'cause most people, they're not going to relate to like, oh, well, I'm not going to be president. I don't really care. I actually wrote a blog article a long time ago. Like, well, there it goes. I'll never be president because I did some crazy shit. But I'm glad as hell cameras didn't exist back then because I'm not that person anymore. You know what I mean? Like I've obviously changed, but people are not going to have the opportunity to change. People are not going to have the opportunity to forgive and forget. That's gone now. So kids are supposed to mess up. Like when you're like a kid, and when I say kid, I mean like 25 and under. Like, because you're supposed to mess up. You're supposed to try things. You're supposed to push the boundaries. You're supposed to go against people. You're supposed to have your own ideas and your own beliefs and fight for them. And then find out later, shit, I was wrong. And then man up to it, change your opinions to what, you feel now later. And then you should only be held accountable for who you are now. Not what you did 10 years ago, 20 years ago when you're an 18-year-old degenerate punk, that's running around and doing whatever it is that you were doing back then. Because you're not that person. I don't think there's a person out there. Well, I shouldn't say that because there's a lot of boring people in this world. Most people would say, I'm not the same person I was when I was 16. But we are absolutely going to be holding people to that going forward. I mean, we're holding people to what the decisions they made thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
Or even hundreds of years ago. We want to bring it closer. Like, people made decisions hundreds of years ago. We don't agree with them. And then we're like, oh, well, that person was a bad person. It's like, well, it's a very different time.
Yeah, there's I can't remember the comedian's name. He's on Joe Rogan all the time, but he does really good impersonations. He does a great Bill Maher impersonation. But he did this skit you could find on YouTube, and actually I'll send it to Harold because maybe he can show a little bit of it. But he did this skit about going back in time and canceling people.
Oh.
Like he cancels Abraham Lincoln because he uses the word Negro, and Abraham Lincoln's like, but Negro is an acceptable term during my time. And they're like, doesn't matter, you're canceled. So yeah, that's what we're talking, like retroactively canceling people for what was acceptable at their time.
So when we're punishing people for what they did when they were 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, we're retroactively going after them. And they're not that person now. They've probably changed, or maybe they haven't. And it's just like, let's say you commit a legit crime. You're 18 years old, you're 100% adult, and you go out and you do a crime. You get busted, you go to jail, you come out 4 years later, you did your time, and then you move on. Everyone knows that if you go to jail for something, getting a job after that is going to be very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone's going to be like, oh, I don't know if I trust this person. And that's understandable.
It's one of the first things they're going to see, that you check that box in your resume, and that is going to get thrown to the side.
Right. And so it's like, it's going to be very difficult for you to get a job, which means it's going to be very difficult to you to maintain a quality of life and have kids and do all these things. So you're instantly screwed.
Yeah.
But the thing is, for someone that went to jail, they can say, and other people around them can say, look, man, he paid for his crime.
Sure.
He did his time. Yes, he did something stupid. He paid for his time. He's starting a new life. Look how good he's doing. That's great. And we give people that second chance, or third chance even, right?
I randomly came across this from an interview. You know that bread company, Dave's Killer Bread?
No.
You've probably seen it. If you go to the shelves, it's very good. If you go to I eat it regularly. But yeah, if you go to the shelves at any grocery store, you'll probably find it. But apparently the founder, Dave, went to jail for something. I don't remember exactly for what. And now he hires only people who were formerly in prison. I don't know if only, but he goes out of his way to hire them, to give them a new life. And it's like, to me, that's respectable.
Dude, there's somebody, and you don't have to, I'm not going to name names or companies, but there's somebody in the identity management world that's high up as like owner, founder level that has a crazy criminal background that no one really talks about. But if they did, it would be a very different conversation. The main thing though is that if you committed a crime, got busted, went to jail, I feel those people have at least a foot to stand on to say like I paid for my, I'm different, I've done my time, I learned my lesson, and people kind of understand that conversation. Let's say you did something stupid when you're 18 and it got posted on Facebook. You even posted on Facebook because you thought it was hilarious. That would be so much fun because back then it was acceptable, fine, whatever. Now you're 10 years later, a decade later, you're now 28, way more of a responsible person. You've realized that was stupid. I made horrible decisions back then when I was 18. I'm not proud of it, but I'm definitely not doing that again. And it really wasn't even something bad. You just, I don't know, you tripped some old lady and you thought it was hilarious. Okay, let's say something.
That's bad.
Okay, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something. I'm trying to think of something where it's like, yes, it's something.
You spray painted public property or something.
Yeah, you're in a bar, you thought it was hilarious, and you spit your drink in some girl's face, and everyone laughed, and then you ran away. Okay, something stupid where it's like, yeah, you should have been punched in the face, and maybe you did. You know, and then you posted the whole thing. You got decked in the face by the boyfriend, and you all laughed about it and went out and got pizza. Okay? Now, you're 28 years old, going in for a job interview, and the guy's like, hey, they have your face, and they just upload your face to the system, and it comes back with every single photo and a video that you've ever been in online. And then they go, look at this guy spitting in this girl's face. It's like, we're not hiring this guy. This guy's an animal. He's crazy, and that's not our, who we are as a company to promote that. So we're not going to hire this guy. That is 100% likely, and not likely in the sense that they're going to do the search, because everyone knows if you're going in for a job, especially like a legit corporate job. I'm like slowly sinking in my chair.
Yeah.
They run a background check on you. Like I go through background checks regularly. I have to do federal background checks, fingerprint background checks, local police background checks. They'll background check me all the way into Puerto Rico when they find out I live there, depending on what jobs it is. Because I do like government positions and stuff. Drug tests. What other kind of tests? I mean, like all kinds of background checks to get jobs, and I go through them regularly. So, and everyone in this industry pretty much does. So, I know I'm clean, but the thing is, they're only checking your criminal record. Now, as soon as they go and say, hey, well, let's find what else this person's done because it's freely available, well, they're going to judge you on that, whether you like it or not. And it's coming. It's 100% coming. So if you have anything damning online, I highly recommend you get it offline right now. But a lot of people, I forgot my password. I don't even have access to that email account. So it's just up there forever and you can't take it down. We can do contact Instagram, say, hey, can you take down this weird post of me?
Are there companies for people watching actually that you would recommend to like do a full report on everything you posted online and expunge it basically for you? Or delete everything, you know what I mean? Aren't there companies that specialize in that?
There might be. I would imagine. If not, it's a great business.
Yeah.
But it's going to be costly, I guarantee, because that's manual labor.
But there's probably people who would be willing to pay the cost.
Sure. I mean, so I ran a large body modification website. Like you said, I was in the body mod scene back in the day. And I ran a very large website. We did about 250,000 unique people a month, all from all around the world in all walks of life. And you can imagine body modification people. You get, hey, I just got my first tattoo, all the way up to crazy.
Yeah.
I cut off my finger. Isn't this cool? Check me out. And that's nothing. I don't even want to go into it.
Yeah.
It can
the
get
stuff we were talking about before. Alien, cat lady, everything. Yeah.
Way crazier than that. There's private parties that would happen for body mod enthusiasts to go where they would do really insane things to each other completely underground, because it was definitely like operating like surgery without a license type stuff that these people were doing. And so there's a huge underground scene. That underground scene probably doesn't even exist right now because cell phone cameras. It's impossible, right? Which, hey, maybe it's good. Maybe people aren't dying or getting hurt. But realistically, everything was done, I don't want to say safe, because like back then when you're in it, you're like, oh, it's totally safe. Look, we have sterilized this and we make sure in this, and everyone talks all these sterile terms, but like you're doing it in a hotel room.
Yeah.
it's like, and then you just negated everything you just said. I shit you not. I have a video, because I was brought into all these things, and I'll never share it online, so don't even bother asking. But I have a video of a guy doing a horn implant on someone's head. And he's creating the pocket, cut the little hole open, and then there's these tools that were custom made by body mod people to separate the skin layers. He's got creating the pocket is what it's called, and he has the silicone pieces, and then you push the silicone in, medical grade, creating this steam clear room and all this kind of stuff. But he's sitting there trying to get it in, and it pops, and you see it shoot across the room. This is a hotel room.
Yeah.
Shoot across the room, bounce like off a wall on the floor. They're like, oh shit. They grab it, sterilize it, clean it up. Like, it's probably fine. Whoop, right in the head, suture it up, good to go. Left it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, whoa. So it's like you're all hardcore about making sure everything is like super sterile. You're doing all these right things, but then something goes awry, and like, what are you gonna do? Walk around with one horn in your head because you don't have another one to match?
I know you did a podcast where you talked about the magnet that you have in your finger,
Yeah.
but I bet you're glad you didn't do any like really crazy body
100%.
modification. You know, even though you're tattooed.
I almost split my tongue.
Yeah.
I was like, I've had it where I even had it lined up to do it, and I was figuring out which would be the best way for me to do it, because there's two different ways.
How would that go over with clients in the identity management space?
I would be fine. I would
You
not
think
have
so,
a problem.
though?
Yeah,
I don't know.
dude, I'm already weird enough. Like, it'd
That's
just be
not
another
weird.
weird thing.
Being fully tattooed is so normal these days. I
These
think.
days, when I was doing it, it wasn't.
Yeah.
That's the difference, right? So when I was visibly my hands were tattooed, that was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't as accepted as it is now. Now everyone has tattoos. Everyone's got their neck tattooed, and they're all idiots. But they all, they're like, it's fine, it's acceptable. No one really cares anymore. Back, like when I first started getting tattooed, and like people could see it, like it was my sleeves and everything. That's when it was like bikers and gangsters and stuff. Those were the people that had this kind of thing. So it was very much a. Let me put it like this: I worked for this company called Mycroft, and it was my first identity management company I worked with. Everyone in the identity space knows of Mycroft because they're like it comes like an incubator where everyone went. Like from there, AppTech came, my companies came from there. Then there was the Taliesin thing and a bunch of, anyway. So while it was there, my last day, I was leaving, this lady, her name was Elizabeth Mann, vice president, I forget what her roles, but she was there from inception, right? She's been there for a long time. We got along great. She's a super awesome person. She's actually at EY now, running identity over there, and she's really, really cool. We got along great. And it was funny because she told me, it's sad to see you go, because I'm never going to be able to tell people the Adam story again. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? She's like, oh yeah. She's like, you don't know about the Adam talk? I'm like, what are you talking about? Now, I've been there for years. Like, I think I worked for them for somewhere around 4 years. And I was sent to pretty much all of their major clients to help fix things that were going wrong. Like, that was my main thing. It was like a firefighter. I'd go in, projects were going sideways, fix them, get everyone happy again, and move on to the next one. And so I was like, wait, what is this? What's the Adam talk? What are you talking about? She's like, you don't know about this? It's like, no. She's like, oh, yeah. So before you go anywhere, we talk to the client and explain. Like, okay, we're sending this guy. He's going to look weird. He might have some like piercing things in his face. He's got tattoos and things, but I'm telling you, he's going to fix everything. Like, we prep every client before you go on site. And I was like, no shit. I had no idea for years they were doing this. And I totally get it. I totally understand why we laughed. It was hilarious. Because literally at one point in time, I used to have spikes right in the middle of my forehead like horns.
So you did have some crazy body modification.
It was just piercings though. They weren't like implants and stuff. But they were, no one has them.
Yeah.
And I was the first one to get them. So if you look on BME, I was the first one to create the category, in case that means anything to people out there. But yeah, so I put them back in because I was shooting a pilot for this tattoo shop I was working at with MTV. And for consistency, I had to put these things back in because we shot a year before when I had them. And then they came back to shoot some more, and they're like, we need those things back in. And I was like, okay, I'll just pierce them back in. Who cares? But I was like, I'm working at a legit job now and traveling, and I don't think clients are going to appreciate it. So I asked first. I was like, hey, I need to put these piercings in for like a week or two. Is that cool? And they're like, oh, yeah, your client already, they're fine. Like, well, I already had a really good rapport with the client, so they didn't really care. And it was only temporary, so they didn't really give a shit. I think I kept them in for like a couple months. But yeah, they were really awesome about it. And so I rocked the piercings for a little bit longer. But yeah, so they would give a talk to every single client before I would show up, and I had no idea that was going on.
It's funny.
Yeah, so it happened. And with that, I'd like to proudly pronounce that I'm drinking goat fuel. We are not sponsored, and it's okay. But yeah.
Well, you know what I wanted to ask? Like, I don't know if we're summing things up here, but or if you wanted to get into more stuff, but I was just gonna ask, like to sum up, I guess, the topic that I asked. Like, you would probably be the guy who would know how to go missing. What? And though you're not planning on this, you have a family.
No, but
that you're very happy with
I did
here.
plan on it a long time ago. I looked on how I was looking. How do I disappear?
You wanted to do this.
I wanted to disappear at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, this
I
was.
mean, that's better than being like, I want to leave this planet. But yeah.
No, yeah, I wasn't waiting for the aliens to abduct me. But no, it wasn't like I was trying to run away from anything. It wasn't for nefarious reasons. It was I wanted to start over. Was my thing because, you know, kind of like what we saw. Like when I was a kid and going through stuff, it's like I was a kid. I was a metalhead, punk kid, whatever, in like high school and college, and I didn't do anything bad. I didn't get in trouble and busted, but it's like I felt like I was at a time in my life where I just wanted a fresh start. I've moved a lot, and because of that, I know that fresh start feeling. Like when you move from New York to California or to Puerto Rico or Detroit or wherever I was living, I think I counted. I think I lived like 15 places in 13 years or something.
Wow.
And so it was like, I was just like, you know what? I wonder what it would take. This kind of goes back to hacker mentality. It wasn't really like, I need to disappear. What do I do? It was more like, I wonder if I could. I wonder if I could start over with a different name.
The thing that I wonder about is
change
this.
it.
For you, I mean, maybe this was a different time in your life. I know that you have like a good relationship with your father. If you went missing, would you want him to know what was?
Yeah, because I wasn't running from anything.
Yeah.
So
but then you wouldn't really go missing because then if they were legally looking for you, your dad could possibly.
I wasn't going to have like cops or anything looking for me, but there were people in Detroit that I didn't want to find. I didn't want them to find.
But it wasn't like that your dad would one day, Adam Cowan is no longer here.
No. It was like I had to think about it a little bit because it was, well, what if the people I don't want to find me anymore? What if they really want to find me and then they find my dad and ask him? That's a possibility. But, like I said, for me, it was more of a game than an actual, like, I need to hide. Like something
But
bad's
I feel like
gonna
you'd
happen.
have to be fully committed.
You do.
And that's what I mean. Like the people that you love.
I wanted to leave the country.
Yeah.
Like, because I wanted to, and it wasn't like like I say, I'm not trying to flee. It was, I wanted to leave the country because I wanted to go live somewhere else. I just loved traveling. I was leaving the country like every 3 months to just travel around. I've been to like 30 countries around the world.
Yeah.
And so I was like, it'd be cool. I just want to go live in Europe for a while. Like, how do I do that? And it's like, oh, we got to get a job and a visa and you got to get sponsored and good luck and all this stuff. And then I found out, well, actually through, I think it was like, I don't know if it was Austria or one of these like EU countries, you can actually buy your way in and then you can get citizenship that way faster. It was like $200,000 or something. But then the key was you had to give up your U.S. passport, which means, and good luck getting that back. So it was like, this is a really hard commitment to make. But there's actually books out there about becoming an expat and disappearing into the world. And so that's why I was like, I kind of went down like a rabbit hole, if you will, of like, ooh, this could be cool.
Yeah.
I had no ties. I had no relationships. I had no kids. I was a traveling freelance consultant, so I can I was a independent, I could do whatever I want person, and I was already just traveling around the world anyway. So really it was like, I just don't want a U.S. passport anymore. I want to get a different passport so that I can kind of just be my own person. Like,
but even with that, if your source of income was being a consultant and then you adopted a new identity, then you wipe the slate clean of all the great references that you have, all the great work on your resume.
I didn't have any at the time.
Yeah.
It was okay. And here's the thing too, though. I've started up multiple startups. I've started up multiple companies. So I've started from scratch. I've gone completely
But starting
down.
from scratch, you still have your reputation. You still have people who could say, this is a great worker. This
True,
guy does
but
great.
I've started very different industry businesses too. Like my tattoo shop references aren't going to help me get a client over in identity management.
It still helps, right? Like when I started working with you, even though this is a different industry than the stuff I've done, you're still able to be like, oh, Ian has worked at Sirius XM. He's worked with these guys. Like if I was a kid right out of college with no experience, you'd have, even if we had the exact same personality and exact same outlook, you would look at me differently than that person.
True. But I can't, like when I, like my resume, my job description and all the stuff that I do, if I was like, yeah, blah, 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 oh, and I own a tattoo shop in Puerto Rico, I had a tattoo shop out in Orange, California, they're going to be like, that's going to start a whole different, like, what? Like, it's not going to help.
Like we just had Jim Flexer on the podcast, and you spoke about him, that you have a tattoo shop and how it plays in your business regimen. I don't know, I just think starting from a clean slate and getting back into making the money that you make now would be, or at least that you were making at the time, would be very hard.
Okay, you know what? Here it is. You're right, but to me, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I've done that multiple times because I want to. Because for me, starting from scratch is a very exciting experience.
Sure.
I like it. Like, I like starting from nothing. I like starting where I don't know anybody and learning and starting over, because you wind up getting a whole new perception in life, and you change as a person when you start over from scratch. So like when I started over from scratch in Puerto Rico, I became a whole new person. When I started over in Southern California, I became a whole new person. Because like living out in New York, LA, it was like it was like a, butting heads. Like, it's like, no, I'm from New York. I'm not from LA. It's like, screw those people. But then when I was living outside LA, I still agreed with that. But I had to kind of fit in with a whole different group of people that I've never had to get along with before. And those life lessons that I learned there have definitely helped me building this company.
Yeah.
So I don't know, for me, I've always enjoyed it. It's like the same reason why I love just jumping on a plane, going to some random country out in the middle of nowhere. Like my last really good one that I really enjoyed was, I was just like, I knew I just needed to get out. So I bought a ticket and I went to, where did I fly to first? I forget, but I think it was Myanmar directly. So I went to Myanmar, Burma.
Yeah.
And then from there I went way up north into Bagan. Which is like jungle, nothing, just these crazy old temples everywhere. And then I just hung out there for a few days. I just walked around with a dirt bike and a machete and just disappeared into the jungle. And
wow.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot that I would never learn in Manhattan. I learned a lot that I would never learn in Southern California in these jungles of Burma.
Yeah.
And I've done that in multiple places. So it's fun for me to have that. No one knows me. It's a completely new thing. And I'm going to learn something new. And then I can take that and use that to build me as a person overall.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like, to start over from scratch and to start with this new idea. Would I do it now? No.
Yeah.
Like without hesitation. I can
Yeah,
tell you.
because you've
There's no way I would
established
do
so
it.
much. So, but my question actually, when we were getting into this, was this then. Because you are the guy who, and this is why we got into the topic, who this is what you do as a career, identity management, obviously. So you know how this all works in terms of, digging into someone's identity. So if you, in 2024, wanted to go missing, do you feel confident that you could do it?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel confident I could do it, but how hard is it going to be? And what commitments do I have to make that happen? I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. No, I know you wouldn't. But
not even from like a fun
I'm
perspective.
just curious, because that's what we started on. Can you go missing in 2024? And you feel that the answer is yes.
100%.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree that you could disappear if you needed to. Like if I absolutely needed to make me and my family disappear, I know I could do it.
But you have to do an amazing job.
I could do that.
Yeah. I just think of, like how you were on the news with, she's no longer doing it, funny enough, but WXFR, I believe was, which is a Fox affiliate. Like, let's say you went missing and I called all my people in media and I was able to get your face plastered on every news station. Have you seen this man?
Yeah.
Like that, because that could be the extent to which you're chasing.
I'm looking, and this is, I've always run this hypothetical in my brain since I was a kid in high school. Because I've always thought, like, for me, I've always had this hacker mentality. And it's not because
Which is funny, by the way, because guys, I'm the one who introduced this topic.
Yeah, this is all his fault, by the way.
I didn't know it was this deep, so yeah.
So when I was a kid, like I've always had the hacker mentality of like, you give me something and I want to know how to get around the thing, or I want to know what else could I do with this technology or do something weird. But like, if you're telling me like, oh, this door is locked, I want to know how to unlock it without a key. And it's not because I'm trying to be nefarious. I'm not trying to do anything illegal. I'm not even trying to hurt anyone or make money on it. It's just, I want to see if I can I want to see if I can be smarter than you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's really what it comes down to. And it's like, what kind of crazy stuff? And that's why I love like the hacker communities, because it's all people with that same mindset where it's like, you give them a problem. And the problem is, hey, look, here's this piece of tech and you're not supposed to do this thing, or you can't do this thing. It's impossible to do this thing. And then that's when everyone goes, I'm going to figure out how to do this thing. Like, it's like a challenge. So, I've always played with my, because I love movies, and, watch movies like Heat and all the bank robbery movies. I'm like, okay, if I wanted to rob a bank, I'm sure everyone's done this in their head at least once, right? Like, hypothetically, how would you rob the bank, right? Like, what are you going to do? And so you run through those scenarios in your head to try to figure out how you would do it. There's no way in shit I would ever attempt anything like this. But it always came back to, I was like, it would be very difficult for me to do any physical crime anywhere, because it's like, who did it? The 7-foot tall tattoo guy, that one. Like, there's no one else. Like, you put me in a lineup, it's like, that guy, done. Case closed.
This was
It's over.
many, many years ago. It was
But
early.
wait, I decided if I wanted to rob a bank, I'd do it in a wheelchair.
Okay. Well, the bank robbery thing, what I was saying, this is many, many years ago when I started in radio, something like 2006, 2007. I definitely saw some type of, I don't know, it was bank robbery, some type of robbery in progress, because I was just walking down the streets of Manhattan and some guy ran by and you saw a giant red mist following him. And
Oh,
it was like
shoot.
staining people's clothes. And someone
Whoa.
did, I was confused. They were like, you just witnessed a robbery in progress, basically, because they put those packets
Yeah.
into the bags of money or whatever. Yeah, where the ink just goes everywhere. And yeah, I saw this in the middle of Manhattan. It was wild. Yeah.
That I always thought that stuff would be cool, but yeah, it's one of those things where I would I always hypothetically plan in my head, like, how would I get away with this? When it's like, and I always think I could figure it out, but I've never actually committed to doing it to see if I could get away with it, because it's risk versus reward, right? What's the risk? The risk is I could go to jail. The risk is the rest of my life would be ruined. My family's life would be ruined. And what's the reward? It wouldn't even be like, oh, I have the money. It would be, I did it. You know what I mean? For me, it's like, and that's kind of the hacker mentality. It's not like, oh, I got the reward of it. The reward is I did what they said couldn't be done. And I did it in this crazy smart way that I figured out. So that's why, like, in that sense, it's, could I disappear if I had to? Yeah. I feel like without hesitation that I could, and I could bring my family with me if I had to. But the risk versus reward, it's what would we have to give up to do that? It would be massive. I mean, it would have to be, for me, it would have to be a life or death situation for myself or someone in my family to make that decision and to commit to make that happen. So, I mean, like, and what's the likelihood of that ever happening? Probably not going to happen. I would say very low points, you know what I mean? So it's not like it's on my radar of like, how do I do it? But I love those mental games of like,
Sure.
okay, just the same reason you're asking me, right? Like, hey, how would we do it? And that's when you start thinking like, okay, well, if I wanted to disappear right now in 2024, being a 7-foot tall tattooed guy with visible tattoos, that's highly identifiable, no matter how much plastic surgery or facial hair I grow, you're going to be able to pick me out of a lineup. I would instantly leave the country, instantly, and I would go to one part of the world where I'm not going to live. So, because the whole thing is, you got to think you're being tracked. So it's going to be, they can track you inside, and when I say they, I'm assuming it's some local government that's tracking me. Then they lose jurisdiction and the ability to really track me as soon as I get out of the country. That's why in every movie, where does everyone go when they rob a bank in California? They can drive to Mexico. We're going to get to the border. That's the movie. And, there's truth to that, but they can also, everyone's like, oh, I made it across the border. Haha, you can't get me. It's like, no, they can still get you. Like, we were actually my wife and I were driving around the other day, and there was a cop, and she's like, whew, it's okay. We're out of his jurisdiction because we've crossed city lines. He can't arrest you now. I'm like, that is not how cops work. Like, if I just did something, that dude is going to take me in. It doesn't matter which side of the road I'm on, okay? But so I'd leave the country, and as soon as I'm out of the country, from, like, I would say I'd go to somewhere like Europe or something, so this way it's still modern. And at that point in time, that's because I'm thinking, because if I have to leave the country, to me, it's an immediacy thing. It's like, I can't wait and plan and figure this whole thing out. It's a reactionary. There's something drastically wrong. Because if you're fleeing for your life, you're not going to wait to figure it out, right? Like, you need to move. So I exit to somewhere Europe, and then from there, I start planning a little bit more and gathering supplies and doing the things I need to do and documentation and making phone calls and doing all the stuff I have to do, because it's a lot less traceable over there. Eventually they'll find it, but I would be gone by the time they did, because I'd be hanging out and I'd be transient. I'd spend maybe 4 or 5 days somewhere there, go down there, and I absolutely would not be using credit cards, cell phones. It'd be all new things. I'd have my currency, which is why everyone hates Bitcoin from a government perspective, because it's hard to track and trace. So crypto, like, if you travel, you're like, oh, I'm gonna bring my money with me. No, you're not. If you have over 10 grand in cash, they're confiscated, unless you have, like, fill these IRS forms and all this other stuff. And that's going to raise huge flags. And the whole point, if you're trying to disappear, is to not raise flags. So you're not going to bring large sums of money with you. You're not going to have access to your bank accounts anymore. So even if you liquidate your bank accounts, like, okay, now what do I do? Well, now I got all this cash. What are you going to do with that? You're not going to do anything. So crypto would be a great way to have your money, or things like jewelry, gems, gold, along those lines, because they're easier to bring around. But even then, you can't, if they find you with it, you're smuggling it. So that's illegal. So you got to be careful there. But crypto, it's wide open, right? So I'd be transient around Europe to gather supplies, to do what I want to do, and figure out where I'm going to go. And then from there, I'd be setting up as many false flags as possible. I'd be buying plane tickets to Thailand, buying plane tickets to Moscow, buying plane tickets to South America. I'd be buying stuff all over the place.
This sounds like the end of Fight Club.
I don't, it's been so long since I've watched that movie. That was a great movie, though.
Yeah, he does that though.
Oh, really? Is that what it was?
Trying to offset.
Yeah, because it's like, and then I would go and I would jump on some of those planes. I'd go over, I'd fly into one country, and then I'd take a train back. And then I'd fly to another country, and then I'd go up, and then people are just like, what the hell? Like, when you're trying to piece it together, it just doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
So basically, send off a wild chase of things. I'd have a bunch of credit cards in my name. I'd be giving them to people and have them go around and charge things and buy things every place. It's like, oh, I just found him. He ran his card over here. His cell phone's over here. It's like, because it's not like they're not going to figure it out, but it buys you time, right? And that's all. That's really what you need to do is you need time to disappear. And then from then, fast forward, I would wind up somewhere third world, away from technology, as far away and as remote as possible is where I would go. So like, Thailand, some paddies out in Thailand, live out in a rice field and just live off a farm down there. South America, Argentina, down in Patagonia or something. Southern Chile, way far away, just disappear, but where you can still have a life. So this way it's like, oh, your face is plastered all over, whatever. Where I live, no one's looking.
Yeah.
Or even better, everyone also knows, especially, I've traveled the world a lot. So like there's places out there where it's like, there's places where people have moved there to disappear. And everyone just knows that lives there. You just don't ask where they came from. You don't inquire these things because everyone is said, I don't like what was ever going on back home. This is my new life now. And everyone just it's like a new expat community of escapists that are just like, I'm just don't want to be a part of that anymore. And what's funny is when I've talked with people like this, they're not running, the majority of the time, they're not running from crime. They're not running from that they committed, right? They're not running because they don't want to go to jail. They're not running because they committed some big crazy scheme. Most of the time, it's because they're running from their family, which is bizarre. But that's the majority of them is that. It's like, you know what? I had a wife and kids, and I just couldn't. I woke up one day and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I do not like, my life is miserable. I hate it. I hate my wife. I hate my kids, whatever. And it's just like, dude, this is dark. But hey, you know what? Everyone's different. Everyone has different life experiences. Like, you don't know until you've lived in that guy's shoes what they've gone through. Not saying what he did was right, but a lot of times these guys feel utterly ashamed at the same time too. They don't want to talk about it. Like, I've only talked to a couple people where they've gone through this and heard their stories, and that's after building a massive rapport with these people over time. Most of the time at a bar, getting them completely hammered. And but yeah, it's like they feel ashamed and whatever, and they're running from themselves more than running from anyone else because they know what they did was a horrible, despicable thing. Not illegal, but like they know they can never go and face their family again. They know that they can never go back to their coworkers again, and they know that they're going to be looking for child support and all that. So yeah, slightly illegal, but they're really running away from having to be that person that they were before because they were miserable or they did horrible things like. Not, like I said, like not crime, but just like abandon their family. You know what I mean? Like that's, and no matter who you are, no matter how hardcore you think you are, if you abandon your family for whatever reason, even if you hated them, you still feel like shit. That's what I've noticed. So therefore it's like, I'd be scouting out situations like that. And then my kids, we'd all have new identities, new names, 100% across the board. And then from there, it would be figuring out ways to create income. I'd do online something probably to generate income because it's the easiest way to make money. But I have to be terribly careful about how to, like, what I'm doing online because, you have to be super careful if you're being tracked and someone's trying to find you. And then I have to teach my kids because that's the hardest thing. How do you tell your kids, hey, you're no longer so-and-so, you're now going by so-and-so. No, we can't call grandma and grandpa anymore. No, we can never see your friends again.
You know, it's funny too, like because I personally know your son and stuff. Yeah. Like, I don't see him going along with this. No. Like, he'd be so open about this.
I know, he's like, oh yeah, we're here running from people. Yeah, my name, so it's like.
Him especially, yeah.
And that's the problem, right? Is like your kids, your family is a wild card. And that's why if you talk to anyone legitimately where like you have to run for your life or you have to run for criminal aspect reasons, you have to be, and you see this in the movies, but you have to be able to drop all connections to everybody.
Yeah.
If you maintain connections, your connections bring you down. Like that con man I was talking about with Lex Friedman. Well, he was bringing his girlfriend along with him. His girlfriend wound up slipping up and getting pissed off about something, and then he got busted. You know, so it's like most people will not make that commitment to sever all their ties unless they don't have any. It's easier. If you don't have family, if you don't have personal connections, if you've just been a hermit, a shut-in, or everyone hates you, and it's really easy to disappear at that point because no one really cares about you anyway. And I think that's a lot of times, you know, with these guys that I met before, you know, that was kind of their situation where they grew up. They had no real family. They didn't have anything really going on, and they're just like, you know, the family that they created, you know, the wife and kids stuff. They're just kind of like, not for me. I'm out.
Yeah. It's wild.
So yeah, there's people that want to disappear for sure.
And that's why I thought it was a good topic.
Yeah. So it's possible, but it's going to be increasingly hard. And you're going to have to stay away from tech. So that's why I would say live out in like the farmland, because surveillance cameras, people, it's not even that. It's people with a cell phone. That cell phone that someone else is sitting next to you with, that you're just in the background of your picture, that's going to give up your entire life right there. So you have to teach everyone to stay off electronics altogether and just stay away from everybody with a phone. And that's hard because like when I travel around Asia, everyone wants to take my picture. I mean, I have photos of me with like groups. Like when I was in Vietnam, I was just walking around and I was in like this outdoor shopping center area. And one lady would come up to me and like, oh, can I get your picture? And I'm like, okay, sure. And then all of a sudden it was another one and then another one. And next thing you know, there's like a swarm and I'm surrounded by like 30 people that all want to get their picture taken with me.
So wild, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm trying to go get food, man. It's like, you're killing me and I can't go anywhere. So when I'm over in Asia, people want the picture, they're way more respectful. So like they're more embarrassed when they want to approach me and ask me for pictures. And then once they see that I'm okay with it and I'm smiling, then that's when all of a sudden they're like, oh, it's okay, let's go in there and they kind of shuffle. And we're here, everyone's rude as all hell. And it's like, and then they wonder why I'm rude back to them. And that's why I was a miserable person for a long time. But yeah, in Asia, they're way nicer to me. And it's kind of fun, you know, but then I'm like, hey, I got to go. I'm sorry. Thank you. And they're all, oh, that's cool. And they're all excited. And then they're like, oh, but look at me, this crazy tall guy. But yeah, like here, like I'll get people, I'll be walking down the street, like on the phone.
Yeah.
And people come up and tapping me on the shoulder. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what's up? And they're like, oh, how tall are you? I'm like, dude, I'm on the phone. Like I'm actively talking to someone. And they're like, oh, rude. I'm like, I'm rude. I'm like, what are you talking about? And this happens to me every day.
Yeah.
So because of that, if I want to disappear and I want to go to somewhere in Asia where everyone wants to take my picture, I'm gonna have to disappear way out into nowhere and befriend everyone immediately and let them know I don't want my picture taken.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my plan. That's how I would do it.
Good stuff, man. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, I had no idea where this is gonna go, but it was fun. It was a little hypothetical.
Exactly, and I think that you gave some people some thoughts to ponder that they never thought about before. Because as you said, this is one of those. It's kind of like the topics of aliens and all this stuff. It's something many of us have probably thought about.
Yeah.
So
I would kind of lay awake at night and be like, I wonder what I would do.
I think it's also, like I said, you'll watch these old unsolved mysteries, and this was a normal occurrence in the 90s. But then you go, yeah, but you couldn't do that now.
No.
So, yeah.
No, it would be, and that's now. Think about 3 years, 5 years from now when AI gets way better, facial recognitions and cameras get better.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they can recognize your retina from 100 yards away and identify you from it. That's going to happen.
And that's why it's, this, even just the question of when you really think of America as being, as they always say, a free country, the more you hear about this, there really is no true, pure freedom anymore because of technology.
And it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
If we don't do something now, as quick as possible, to put a stop and put a different way of life in place right now, it's only going to go the direction it's going. Like we have so much momentum and force with how internet and technology and facial rec and privacy stripping is happening. You're just going to see it more, right? Like no one's giving rights back. No one's no one's taking technology away from people. Tech isn't getting weaker. You know what I mean? And what I'll leave you with is this: watch Minority Report. When that movie came out, it was an amazing film and lots of fun and a great futuristic thing. Everything that happens in Minority Report is possible right now. So Minority Report, their whole process was oh, well, these super weird, smart alien being things, clones, I don't remember what the hell they were, they could predict the future, so they knew what you were going to do before you did. And therefore, they'd run up and arrest you right before you stabbed your wife that was cheating on you, and then they'd arrest you for thought crime. No, it was 1984. But everything that happens in there is capable now. And if you replace those weird clone things floating in the bathtub with AI, that's real. If AI has enough on you and your profile and how you behave and how you react, and because you post everything online all the time, then it can
I'm laughing at your seat now. Yeah.
I need a new chair
you need a new chair.
So AI,
You're no longer 7 feet.
Yeah, this is perfect. So AI will be able to predict what you're going to do before you will with a certainty percentage. And what's going to happen, which terrifies me, is the first time to say, hey, look, we've developed an AI system where we have access to all these people's personal records. We can create that profile and we can say, hey, look, with 90% certainty, this person is going to commit a crime. We should probably stop them before they do it. And someone's going to get a great idea, and there's going to be a big publicity about how they were able to prove that it did prevent something like the next 9/11.
Yeah.
That's how this is going to be advertised. Not like we're going to prevent you from stabbing your wife. We're going to prevent the next terrorist attack. We're going to prevent the next big world war.
Which this would be, it's funny because we're wrapping up. It would be a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But that is a lot of like what the CIA does. The CIA infiltrates certain groups, and they, if you read about Ruby Ridge, they kind of poke this guy more and more to do more illegal stuff that he may or may not have done, but they got involved in the purpose of like arresting people who are being radicalized. But with technology, as you're saying, this is going to be a lot easier to do.
So watch Minority Report, because I feel like we are pretty much right there right now. No one's just figured out the system of creating those clone people. But I feel if we continue this path, things like that will be inevitable. And those are the conversations that I want to have, because it terrifies me. And I think we need to start having the conversation about how do we prevent things like, how do we not get there? How can we still have a great life, still enjoy the tech, still like I'm talking to John Lester from Loft, saying like, hey, how can we still use fire for the great benefits that fire has, but not set the house on fire doing it? So that's where we have. I feel that's the AI conversation, and privacy. So privacy and AI are going to be huge things. I think people really need to start having more real deep conversations and thought process around where are we going and what's going to happen.
Awesome.
Cool. With
Thanks,
that,
guys.
I'm done.